Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of What's on My Desk. And today we have a special guest right after the intro.
Yeah.
So for today's episode, I brought on Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold, welcome to the show.
About America and about the skyscrapers, the big freeways, the big cars and all that, I said to myself, I want to be part of this big thing.
Okay, that's great, Arnold, and I really appreciate it. We've had a lot of success with this channel.
Confidence, you see, that's what makes you great.
Thank you, Arnold, and you as well. Now, we know some of the same people.
Some really good friends from way back.
Well, one of these connections, Arnold, is how I got my hands on this particular watch. Now, this is an Audemars Piguet limited edition, end of days, but not just any Audemars Piguet. This is the actual watch that you wore in the movie. Arnold, let me ask you a question. How do you feel this particular watch compares to other watches that you wore in movies that you made in the past?
Well, I think that it's a very difficult thing to answer.
Well, that makes sense. You've been in a lot of movies.
Movies like Terminator, Predator, End of Days and stuff like that.
Yeah, and many more, Arnold, we know.
There was some real dogs I made too. I mean, there was another old movie that were perfect.
Arnold, is it about the watch or about the movie? Do you pick a watch because you like that particular watch? Is it a certain complication? Or is it because of the movie that the watch is going to be associated with?
I think that all goes back to my childhood.
Yeah, well, Arnold, we don't really have that much time on this show.
I was poor because I didn't have anything.
Arnold, I appreciate all that, but can we get back to the watch, please?
I was always so hungry for perfection and so hungry for being bigger and better and lifting more and performing better and all those things. I think you need that in order to be successful.
What if I ask you like this? One word to describe why you like this watch.
Why do you want me to say it in one word?
So originally this watch was retailing for $11,200. And at one time it went up as high as $60,000. And today it still trades at near triple its retail value.
I had no idea that it would go as far as it did.
At one time this was considered the holy grail, believe it or not, of all watches. Now looking at my computer, it appears that the last time you wore this watch was...
Well, it was, you're talking about when I looked at myself naked?
I don't know that story. But I will tell you this. Despite its size and weight, this watch wears quite comfortably on the wrist. And boy, do you have a big wrist.
Very nice.
Wow. Now, Arnold, it sort of feels weird right now. We're sort of in these weird times. We have the pandemic, we had the riots, the killer hornets. There's a rumor that there's a meteor heading towards Earth, and what else? And what could be next? Aliens? Sort of feels like the end of days.
It's unusual. It's strange, it's weird.
So I guess I should ask you, what do you think people should do right now in such uncertain times?
Well, I don't think that they need to do anything. I think everyone should just enjoy themselves, eat and drink and have a good time. And then after, they should set a program of reducing that extra fat that they've gained.
Yeah, I know. Working from home in the quarantine, it's kind of hard to avoid the cookie jar.
Yummy for the tummy.
Well, Arnold, I want to thank you so much for coming to the show. I'm sure my viewers will appreciate it. I guess one last question I have is, what are your plans for the rest of this quarantine?
I'm going to have my Austrian schnapps, I'm going to ski down the slopes, and I'm going to have a great time.
Skiing and drinking at the same time could get a bit dangerous, and I want to thank you once again for coming to the show. Guys, I hope you enjoyed our special guest. Obviously, all of this was courtesy of Ian's creative mind and creative editing. But let's get serious for a minute. Let me talk about this watch. This indeed is the watch that was worn in the movie End of Days. It is considered to be a prototype. Right off the bat, I'm going to show you the reference number on the papers. And you'll notice it's 257770SN. This part stands true for the regular end of days, but the rest of the stuff is not what corresponds to a regular end of days. The regular end of days reference number, if you look it up anywhere online, after the SN, it's .00.009KE.01. This reference number only belongs to this particular watch. I also have a letter from the production company of the movie. And also this letter says that this particular watch was a prototype produced by Audemars Piguet, specifically for Arnold to wear in this movie. Carries obviously the unique reference number as well as the serial number, and then later goes to say that Audemars Piguet subsequently went on to produce a limited edition of 500 watches based on this prototype dubbed the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore End of Days. So I guess let's show the watch. Now there's nothing different about the watch itself from the limited edition that was later made. Now you have to understand, for the times, this is a very, very unique timepiece because PVD back then was very, very unique. There was not a lot of use for PVD 20 years ago in the watch industry. This was very, very avant-garde. What was also striking about this watch is the yellow accents against the black. Again, something unusually loud for the times. You know, nowadays you see all these red Richard Milles and these crazy APs and these crazy camel colors. 20 years ago, that was not the case. This was very, very avant-garde. You'll notice that this Offshore still carries the old lug system, where later Offshores sort of had those two end links that would go into the strap. This has just a regular strap, reminiscent of the early Offshores that were made in early 90s, post the 20-year anniversary of the Royal Oak. The buckle that you see here is actually not a regular buckle that you would find on this particular Offshore on an end of days. What you will find on a regular end of days is this particular buckle. It was a tang buckle. Regular end of days also came with a Velcro strap as well as this leather strap, as you see here. And seemingly you will say right away, wait a minute, somebody put this on a bumblebee strap. This is not a bumblebee strap. This is a strap that was made specifically for Arnold, hence the size, by the way. I put this thing on my wrist and, you know, I can put two of my wrists in here. If I open this up and I show you the back of the strap, you will quickly realize that this is not a bumblebee strap because of its back. A regular bumblebee strap in the back is actually that light brown calfskin that's sort of applied across the back of the strap. This was a special strap, obviously made specifically for Arnold due to the size of his wrist. And on the outer side, it's a hornback crocodile strap, very reminiscent of a bumblebee strap, right? So that's really the only difference on the watch. Let's talk about the value of these watches. It's actually pretty sad what happened to the end of days. During the time that the market was extremely hot on limited edition Offshores, really started by the Juan Pablo Montoya, and that's when the craze started, leading up to Barrichello, T3s, and numerous other things. The end of days was sort of overlooked for a little bit, and then all of a sudden people realized that this has got to be the Grail watch, because this is one of the very, very, very first limited edition Offshores that Audemars Piguet came out with, right? This was before the Montoya, this was before the Barrichello, this was before the Lingies and the Schumachers, obviously, which is more current. This was one of the very, very first limiteds. And once people actually realized, a huge demand arose for these watches. This watch didn't come with a box. It only came with a certificate and the watch itself. But the regular end of days edition came with a half moon box. They came with a PVD screwdriver that allowed you to change straps in and out. That would be the complete set, where this watch didn't really come with all that. It was just a certificate and the watch itself. Again, this is a prototype. This wasn't meant to be sold or resold. But once people quickly realized that there was a value in this watch, and it was sort of dubbed the Holy Grail of all limiteds. There was a gentleman in Chicago, I won't mention his name, who reached out to me and said, listen, Roman, find me all the end of days you can find. At the time, the market has already gone up about 35 to 40,000 on this watch, which was crazy because this watch only retailed for 11.2 originally when it came out, right? Which was normal for the times. And once this gentleman started looking up all these trying to buy up all these end of days, the prices have skyrocketed. He single-handedly rose the price of this watch from 35 to 40,000 all the way up to 60 to 65,000. I think the highest he paid for an end of days was 63,000 or so. Of course, his thought process was that he was going to make a killing on all these things, that these are the watches to have. He was trying to buy up as many as he could. And the watch was trading at around 60,000 for quite a while because there was none on the market, and whenever one would show up, this gentleman would buy him up. And I myself sold them at least 11 pieces myself. At the time, I actually kept one. Because I really, really loved the watch, and at a later time, I sold it for a ridiculous number. Once this gentleman was out of the picture and the market softened up a little bit, nobody was paying $60,000 for this watch, but it still went back to that sort of $35,000 price range, which is where it was trading to begin with. Again, alongside of Montoyas and Barrichellos and things of that nature. And then, as everything else, time has gone by, and the limited edition Offshores have lost their appeal due to too many of them made, number one, plus people moved on to other things. Trends change, right? And this watch came back down. And right now, you will find this watch trading sort of in that mid-20s, right? For a nice, complete one in good condition, with papers, expect to pay anywhere from low 20s to high 20s, right? So I know what the next question that's coming to your mind, how much is this worth, right? And I would hate to tell you that I do not know. And the reason I do not know is when it comes to prototype type pieces, especially ones that have the original papers and that have the provenance. This is not a copy, this is an actual letter that came from the production company verifying that this was the watch. How do you price something like this? Well, you really can't. Because A, it takes a special collector to pay a hefty premium for something like this. So more often than not, we would put a watch such as this into auction. But then it's a catch-22, because if that auction doesn't have the audience that's willing to pay up for something that's so rare, a prototype watch, then you can be SOL. And the watch may only get bid up to what, you know, the regular market value on an end of days is today. So when we were offered the watch, you know, I asked myself a question: how much more am I willing to pay for the fact that this is a prototype, this is the first of its kind? And number two, do I have the client to pay up for such a rare watch? And the answer is of course, we paid a lot more than we would normally pay for an end of days. You know, I try to buy the end of days in the realm anywhere from 20 to 25,000, again, depending on how clean and how complete the particular watch is, because all the bells and whistles do make a difference for this watch papers. Number one, the original moon box, which you can't replace, the screwdriver, the extra strap, the buckle, and the Velcro strap, all those things that do make a difference. We haven't really decided what we're going to be selling this watch for, but we do expect this watch to fetch at least double, again, to the right client that will appreciate this watch for the rare it is, and that will appreciate the watch itself, because, you know, there's people that love the end of days. Cool. There's people that hate the end of days.
No shit.
I know a lot of collectors that picked these up when I was first starting out in the business have held on to them, and it's probably one of their favorite watches. So lining up the right client that's willing to pay pretty much double the current market price of the end of days can be a little bit tricky, but as I always say, there's an ass for every seat. I guess I'll end this video for first apologizing by only showing you one watch, but me and Ian felt that it would make for a kick-ass video. And the watch itself sort of deserves its own video, and so does Arnold. Arnold, in my opinion, is the most iconic ambassador for any brand out there, simply due to the amount of watches that were made for his movies and himself, right? I did an episode in the very, very beginning of my YouTube channel where I sort of did the clock pointing, and I talked about all the different Arnold watches that were out there. But just to reiterate a little bit, you know, you have your end of days, you have your 6-day watch, you have your Terminator watch, right? These are watches that any watch collector out there is very well aware of. And not to mention all of his charity stuff. The All Stars Foundation. Arnold has raised a tremendous amount of money for the All Stars Foundation, which he created. You know, to get kids off the street and make them stop doing stupid shit and doing something productive with their lives, and for them to have an actual future. And Arnold is very passionate about that charity. That charity still exists. And Audemars Piguet has been a big part of that in helping Arnold raise the monies for that particular organization. So a big shout out to Arnold. I don't know if you'll get to watch this video, I highly doubt it, but if you do, big shout out to you for all the charity work that you have done. Not only are you an icon in bodybuilding, not only are you an icon in movies, but you're also a huge icon in giving back, which is something I strongly believe in. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed today's episode and an interview that Ian concocted. You know, leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Other than that, you know what to do. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button right over there if you're not already a subscriber and you are watching this. And last but not least, don't forget to share this with all your friends across your social media, because that's what helps my channel grow organically. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week for more watch reviews and other videos.
I'll be back.